All right, for more on the delay in the passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, let's have this chat with the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi. Dr. Sam Amadi, glad to have you join me in the studio here on Newsnight.
Thanks for having me.
ADC is accusing the Senate of delaying the passing of the electoral bill, that it poses both compliance and eligibility risk. What are they saying, in effect?
Well, essentially, the election process has many timelines, and based on constitutional dating for the constitution, when X has to happen, when elections have to hold, time for election litigation, time for swearing in. So, dating from the constitutional timeline, the Electoral Act sketches timelines as well, and INEC builds its own guide and regulations that kind of try to optimize and implement those timelines. And so if you don't have an Electoral Act right now, we cannot presume that maybe not much change can happen, perhaps, but you're not sure. So what ADC seems to say is that, look, you're going to create a lot of confusion, you're going to create a lot of crisis if you don't quickly enact one. Even right now, parties are talking about maybe congresses leading to primaries, but the timeline is not clear. And so you might see what was on 2023. Don't forget 2022, run up to 2023, when the PDP and other parties had to ask INEC for extension. And INEC did a very unregulatory, unprofessional work of stop saying no, and then when PDP rushed to primary, INEC now gave extra 1 week for APC to put the house in order. That shouldn't happen now. So the idea here is INEC was just under pressure. The parties are under pressure. So the point ADC is alleging to maybe is to say, but why should we follow to this, time clock? Because everything started on time. To the credit of the National Assembly, they had met as both houses, met with plaque, have done a lot of work to go through a lot of committee work. And so by now, and when the House passed the first version, if I'm correct, was late last year. So you would expect December. Yeah. So you would expect that by now, concurrence would have happened, and the President would have probably signed off on the act. So not totally late, but begin to raise concern around.
If ADC says this is to delay, according to them, is to undermine reforms ahead of the election, are they making sense?
From history, maybe yes. Don't forget at a point, in 2019, run up to 2019, President Buhari refused to sign the amendment to the Electoral Act on the basis that time was short. And maybe there's a time in which it becomes really impossible to sign off because you're going to perhaps create confusion. So ADC's view is political, obviously. I mean, attacking his opponent, which is fair in politics. So the party in government, they control the presidency, they control the Senate, they control the House of Reps. So if there's a delay or a failure, ADC rightly pushes it as a failure of the APC. And they probably have some sense saying, we smell a rat here. We have all the time to get it done, and you don't want to do it. So you are undermining, take for example, the issue around electronic transmission of election, of votes, of results, which in my own idea as a scholar of administrative law, I've argued that the 2022 provision on election was adequate, almost 80%, 90%. I mean, it's clear.
I was going to. Yeah, you're already raising.
Yeah, the Supreme Court, in my view, got it wrong.
You're raising. Okay, let me now, because of what you said, ask you this question.
So the point I was making that if you don't clarify that position, and it's late in the day, some of the presumed innovations we have told, put in by the House of Reps, if at the end of the day they don't come out, so you create a confusion. People say, oh, but we thought you're going to have X, Y, Z, but the final version doesn't have it, and that might be what ADC is talking about.
We're going to get back to that, but you raised that issue, and that's what I want you to tackle now. Are there really grounds for this amendment? In other words, the way the law is at present, what is wrong with it? Or is it the politicians that are the real problem?
The Electoral Act today, probably problematic 20%. 80% is the court and INEC. Now, let me, 2 points to show you. part of the crisis of the electoral, part of the innovations they're introducing is to put what they call black letter law, to say expressly that you have to transmit electronically from polling units straight to the platform, whether it's IRF or whatever, okay? But that's already in the Act. The Act prescribed that INEC would transmit election results by a mode it shall determine. And INEC went ahead and made a determination through a regulation, through due process, and says we will do that 2 levels of transfer. INEC will first transfer to the collection center, which is what they do manually, you know, and INEC will transmit that result to its electronic platform. The courts, wrongly, up to the Supreme Court, I mean, this is basic administrative law 101. I taught that for years. When the and again, section 60 of the Constitution, section 60 sub 2, which Jonathan passed, says that INEC regulations are never subject to to parliamentary or executive review. So INEC is the only agency in this country that has robust independence to make rules, and those rules does not require presidential or parliamentary review. So INEC is the most independent by law in this country.
Are they independent?
In the world.
Do they understand what you're saying?
That's a point. Everything that went wrong in the 2023 election are things that INEC could correct. So first, transmission of election results. Evidence shows that INEC had done that in governorship election towards the presidential. They did not test time enough their machine, the platform, to put in the aspect, the logarithm for presidential election. And so, whether by design or default or error, they now created, somebody came and created them an alternative IRF that failed, and they now use email. So the court says, well, they're not bound. I mean, that was really shameful of the judiciary because they are all to follow the rule. That's one. Number 2, people talk about the fact that sometimes fake results come in, INEC don't have to process them. But INEC Act says that INEC can actually, after collecting results, go back to adjudicatory process to determine the value of the election. So INEC creates a sense of urgency. That's why people say Mahmoud declared results 3 a.m. The Electoral Act allows Mahmoud to sit back with the commissioners and review everything for 2-3 days for a week.
Before it releases?
Absolutely, before it declares it. Absolutely. The Act, so if the INEC had worked, and that's why I've argued that INEC, the work should be more on INEC, to make INEC a real regulatory institution like we have in abroad, where decisions are made on record, due process, hearing from interveners and party stakeholders, then they sit like a question. INEC should be sitting like a court.
In other words, you're saying
Yep.
they didn't have any reason, based on law, to, apart from failing, to announce that result at 3 a.m. in the morning. They don't sat down, taking their time.
Nothing. The Act allows them to delay for up to a week. The Act says that INEC can review results. Clear. So INEC had the power to review results. That's part of the problems we want to cure. So essentially, it's good to have this new Act. But again, if INEC is serious, and the new chairman comes with reputation, okay, people say, great guy, if he really wants to deliver clean election with 2020, INEC has the powers. INEC has the powers to appoint other officials, for example, university professors who are now bought over. I mean, the governor, the real battle for election rigging is now to make sure you determine who is the vice chancellor of federal universities. On the hope that if I was INEC chairman, I would play a soccer game, and I wait till the last minute. I'll put alternative people, and I'll get another person to be an officer. And shake up the system. INEC can't shake up the system and get without the new Act.
So when the lawmakers, when ADC, I mean, they have a right to talk about this, say something like this, that if you say that if there is a delay, it will affect INEC's preparations and political parties.
That's true, because, like I said, INEC cannot review the constitutional timeline. INEC can also not review the Electoral Act timeline. So what INEC does, with even the best efficiency, which they have not been in the past, and I'm fairly efficient, they can't, bake bricks from nothing. They're going to work with a timeline. So if you don't give them enough time to prepare, for example, I know that the chairman and his team has been consulting with the previous commissioners, with people like Jega, people like Oke Bano, great guy who understands how the system works. So they would need to learn from them. And again, most of the commissioners are due to be new appointments as we run up to election. So you're going to have a new INEC leadership that needs time to learn, time to plan, time to test run and get ready. So that's true. The parties themselves, if you look at the run up to 2023, because Abuja could build what they call election observatory, and we're monitoring day by day. The political parties did not even know that statutory delegates have been abrogated in the new Electoral Act. If I remember taking it up with the chairman of with the NOS, Social Organized Secretary of PDP, I said, you guys don't have, you can't. He said, no, it's not true. And I was, Abuja School probably the first people who raised that issue. I said, look at the new law. They don't have provision for so-called statutory delegates. So people who even went to court to challenge whether people in government can be delegates, can run election. So new laws changed the game, and they were struggling to understand what's going on. So if you don't bring it on time, the parties themselves will not be able to first get them. Because we're assuming that what the House passed will pass. So assuming the Senate introduces new dimension.
Now time has. Just very quickly, let's be clear. The House has passed it. The Senate is still holding on. The House says that the spokesperson says is to improve transparency, credibility. I
don't understand. Is the House revisiting their own? Or are they talking about the Senate delay?
No, it's Senate. Senate is delaying. The House said they passed.
Good. So
Senate is delaying.
So they're foreclosed. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rotimi is saying it's to improve transparency, credibility, and efficiency of the democratic system. In a nutshell, do you think this is what it is?
I think Nigerians, the National Assembly doesn't have much credibility, so they will redeem themselves by what they produce. So let's assume it's true. For me, I'm not going to go to sleep saying, oh, our blessed National Assembly, they're going to give us, I believe that they are going to probably ruin the whole show, but if they get it right, I will clap for them.
So you're still on the side of
skepticism, because they have failed, they have no basis for optimism.
Right. Thank you so much. Director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. It's always interesting discussing these issues with you, Dr. Sam Amadi, for being here.
I appreciate it.